Hello, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to Connect Africa, our bi-weekly session every Tuesday and every Thursday. Sorry for that technical problem. Yeah, my phone was on. I am here today with our Tuesday and every Thursday analyst, Pan-Africanist Kwame Gonza, my brother Kwame. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mahlet, and greetings to all the viewers of Connect Africa. We once again want to welcome you to our, weekly broadcast, which we do twice every week, or as Mallet mentioned, on Tuesday and Thursday. And the purpose is for us to get an understanding, especially of global events, and discuss and analyze how they are affecting our continent, Africa, and our people globally. We are talking about Africans across the globe, or people of African descent, if you may like. So these are the things which we come to discuss, every Tuesday and every Thursday. So if you are out there and this is your first time to tuning into this channel, please invite others. Uh, do us a favor, push that like button on the channel, and then also subscribe and share the channel with other people so that we can grow. This is the support that you can give us, as we push forward. As Malit has mentioned consistently, we are not only discussing these things and analyzing them and leaving them there, but we are also pushing forward on the front to make a contribution towards the unification of the African continent. So the numerous ways in which we are doing this contribution, including petitions and other things like having and setting up dialogues with the African Union and various regional bodies, having a conversation with them and trying to push them in the direction of African unity now in our generation. So if you want to contribute to that, you can reach out to Mallet to put the contacts in the channel, description. So today we want to discuss the demand by various African countries. We have seen various countries across the African continent coming up to demand the return of the various items, whether it is artifacts that were stolen during the European invasion of the African continent, starting with around the 15th century when Europeans started coming, to Africa. Of course, we have some of them even up to now still lodging on the continent. We have them in the south, southern part of the continent of Africa, in South Africa, to be precise. So we have them on the continent, but their brethren who came here, whether they came to Kenya, East Africa, whether they came to, even to Ethiopia, Nigeria, Cameroon, all these places, everywhere the Europeans came, they took certain things. They robbed, actually. They plundered these places and took the artifacts before they would claim that Africa did not accomplish anything. But they were looting the artifacts and the wealth and the riches and the gold and the diamond. So we want to discuss today how that is playing out today with the demand, the recent demand by the kings in South Africa, that the diamond, the Cullinan diamond, the diamond is called the Cullinan diamond, which is the biggest diamond that has ever been found across the globe. So we want to understand why was this stolen, and then also we want to understand at which stage we are that these this wealth, these riches are being demanded by Africans, and what is the stage where we are. So these are the things which we want to have a discussion on, but Mallet is going to expand on that, what we are going to talk about. So Mallet, please, you can take over the microphone for now.
Thank you, Kwame. Thank you for introducing the topic, of course. So today, as Kwame said, we are going to talk about the coronation of the Britain's King Charles coronation. But we're not interested in the coronation itself, but we are much interested the jewels and the rich and the things that are used to decorate the coronation, which are stolen from Africa. And actually globally from various parts, but more from Africa. So in the midst of this, what really captured the world amidst this coronation prior and while it's happening was the different campaigns by Africans and from British past colonial countries, activists from there leading a campaign to return, demanding Britain to return those jewels back to where it belongs. So some of the things that were displayed in this coronation were, diamonds, golds, in general, collection of rich, the jewels and the crowns and the sticks that the king was holding. We ask, are these do they all these jewels and the crown and everything that's displayed in front of us, do they belong to the royal family of Britain or even to Britain itself? To who it, I mean, this is a known fact that this is stolen from the British. They have this, it reminds of this murky and bloody history of Britain. So, as Kwame said, he mentioned South Africa. There is also India. There is Pakistan. In Africa alone, there are a number of things that Britain has stolen. But of course, as we said, we are more interested in the stolen artifacts. But before we we go there in detail, I asked Kwame if he can give us a background on the brief history of the royal family of Britain and their connection with slavery and colonization and even neo-colonization as it continued, because they have also some mining companies in South Africa. So just give us a brief background. As we say, this is where we do our research, come and present. It's an education, and then we go to our main topic.
Thank you, Mahlet. Thank you very much. Please, if you allow me to share this short video, and then we'll go and dig into the topic of the day and try to understand it very well. So, thank you.
All countries have parts of their pasts that they're not proud of, that they would rather forget. But it takes courage to face those parts and bring in some light. And this is a time for courage. The courage to hear dissenting voices, such as those of the people who are outside right now protesting. They should be heard and included. They have valid concerns. The courage not merely to say, we take your criticism, but to follow it with action. The courage to say, we were wrong. The courage to say about art acquired illicitly, this is not ours. Tell us what to do with it. The courage to do provenance work and to actively use local knowledge. The courage to act and to act now and not become crippled by endless planning and endless talking. The courage to believe that it can be better. We cannot change the past, but we can change our blindness to the past. And why, by the way, is the term ethnological used for art from certain parts of the world and not art for other parts of the world? And then in discussing some of this art that we term ethnological, and I would argue that the language itself already suggests a hierarchy of value. When we talk about this art that was stolen, we're told that they cannot be returned to Africa, for example, because Africans will not take good care of them. It is not merely condescending to say, I cannot return what I stole from you because you will not take good care of it. It is also lacking in basic logic. Since when has the basis of ownership been taking good care of what is owned? This position is paternalistic arrogance of the most stunning sort. It does not matter whether Africans or Asians or Latin Americans can take care of the art stolen from them. What matters is that it is theirs. The brilliant Nigerian artist Victor Hikameno put it much better than I could, and in very Nigerian terms. He says, if I come and steal your wrapper, and I say I won't give you back your wrapper because you will not tie it properly around your waist, or you will not wash it well, and so the colors will fade, or this or that, all are irrelevant. The wrapper is mine, and I can do with it what I will. Give me back my wrapper because it is mine. The metaphorical wrapper, for those of you who are befuddled by wrapper, it's a piece of cloth, should be returned for the reason that Hikameno illustrates, which is respecting the property of others, but also because Europe has defined itself as a place of certain values: progress, liberty, fraternity, tolerance, individual rights, and most of all, the rule of law. A nation that believes in the rule of law cannot possibly be debating whether to return stolen goods. It just returns them. And so if the dignity of those from whom the art was stolen does not matter, then surely this idea should matter, that Europe should be what it claims to be. Live up to the ideals with which you define yourself. I should pause here and note that sometimes these conversations run the risk of sounding like empty moralizing, or like asking for the impossible or the unrealistic, or insisting on an unattainable purity and perfection. Obviously, I don't think everything should be sent back to the countries from which they came. Not everything was stolen. But those things that are sacred, those things for whom people were killed, those things that have in them the stain of innocent blood should be returned. Obviously, we do not have all the information. There are facts lost in unrecorded history, but we can draw reasonable conclusions based on information that we do have. We can deduce, for example, that the Ngonso, the beautiful sculpture of the founder and guiding spirit of the Nso people of Cameroon, the former German colony, could not possibly have been obtained under benign circumstances. Because why would you willingly give up your guiding spirit? It is also important to remember that not all wounds are visible. Some wounds we carry in our hearts, inherited from our parents, passed on to our children. But this discourse is, of course, not just about the Humboldt Forum. It is about museums all over Europe, in France, in the Vatican, in Britain. And I must acknowledge that Germany is the first of the powerful European nations that has made a gesture that the announcement said that a substantial amount would be returned, which made me wonder how this would be determined and by whom. And it is equally interesting that it is British colonial loot rather than German colonial loot that is being returned by Germany. But still, it is progress. And Germany's action, this gesture towards righting what is wrong, must be acknowledged. My acknowledgement of it is not to say that the work is done, but that the work has started, and that perhaps a place like the British Museum, and I know that Neil is here, which owns the majority of the Benin bronzes, might perhaps be inspired by the German decision, and that hopefully the British Museum will rethink and that hopefully the British Museum will rethink its policy of retain and explain, which is unacceptable. So this is the Humboldt Forum. A forum usually implies, among other things, a space created for a free exchange of ideas. One can only hope that the Humboldt Forum will live up to its name as a space for true intercultural and transcultural exchange of ideas in mutual respect between the cultures. But this rhetoric of free exchange of ideas must be practical. And by that, I mean such things as travel visas.
Yeah, so yes, this is what I wanted to show our viewers. This is Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Is one of the prominent writers. Mahlet, you can remove it. You can remove it from the screen. Yeah, so Chimamanda is one of the prominent writers we have on the African continent. She's Nigerian, but at the same time, she's a very strong African woman who pushes the idea of African voices, not only African voices, but also the voices of women and girls, being heard. And there's a talk which she gave, I think it was on TED. She gave a TED talk in which she spoke about the importance of hearing the other story, the other side of the story, not always listening to one side of the story and concluding and making conclusions. So she named it, I think, the danger of a single story. So here she was speaking about art, African art, and the other treasures which have been stolen from Africa. She was giving a very strong speech, as you have seen, that she was mentioning Britain, Germany, and the various colonial countries, European countries, who have for a long time apportioned to themselves the values of liberty. They are the champions of liberty. They are the masters of liberty. They are the masters of justice, as if they dropped down from heaven. But when you go on the other side, the same people who are saying that we are the masters of the rule of law, the property from Africa that was stolen from Africa, they are coveting it, and Africans are saying return our property. They do not want to return that property. So that takes us to the royal family of Britain. The royal family of Britain, of course, was at the helm of the colonization process of not only Africa, but even India and the all, global, parts of, the whole part of the earth, even in India, in China. You heard of, places in China where they carried out the Opium Wars. For example, the purpose of the Opium Wars was to impose, of course, opium on the Chinese people, to which the Chinese leadership was refusing. And because Britain had a superior army that time, it had the superior weapons, like how you see the United States. It went in and bombed China until China accepted and even submitted to their demands that they gave in their territories, and they gave them access to the markets in China, the ports, because China had refused to open these places to them, to the point that they retained Hong Kong until 1997, from the years of 1840, 1845. So since that period, the Chinese were able to sign off their territory of Hong Kong for almost more than 100 years to Britain to colonize this place. And China recently just got back, Hong Kong. They are still, of course, battling to get back Taiwan. And so this was the British Empire and the royal family. The royal family has, of course, always the one which has been at the helm of the affairs of the British Empire, whether it is, the colonization policy. As you know, in Britain, there is no president. There is a prime minister who answers to the king or the queen. For example, the queen who just died, who has been at the helm of the rulership of Britain for the last 70 years. All of them, the prime ministers, even if it is Tony Blair who participated in the Iraq war, he doesn't go to such a war without getting permission from the queen. He didn't go to the war without getting permission from Queen Elizabeth. The parliament, the House of Commons in Britain alone is not enough to make this decision. It is until the Queen allows that you should go, and participate in the war, that the army, the British army, is then dispatched to go and participate in a war like in Britain, or like a war in Iraq or Afghanistan and all the other parts of the world where they are occupying. So it is on this that they were basing to loot the treasures of the globe. The colonization, as you remember, they came through the claim that they are coming to civilize the Africans. Of course, all of Europe, that was the claim when they were coming to the African continent, even when they were going to India, even, to civilizations. Many of the civilizations which were even way ahead of Britain, like, for example, India, if you go there, if you go to Benin, present day Nigeria, the art which was being performed, for example, in Benin, present day Nigeria, was way beyond the type of art that was being, the type of art that was being produced in Europe, all over Europe, that to the extent that they said that this art, which is the Benin bronze, bronzes that Chimamanda Ngozi is talking about, that they are present in the British Museum and the German Museum. When the British found the art, they said that the blacks, is not possible that blacks can be able to do this art. Maybe there's a white man who came around to teach them. So it was this arrogancy that, was carrying them, that the British were the leaders of this kind of arrogance. Even when you are talking about the Berlin Conference of 1884, the British were some of the, were some of the pilots of this, organization of the organization of this conference. And so that is why you see that they took some of the biggest parts across the continent to colonize them before they would come into contestation with France, of course, and then later German, as they were fighting because of greed against, each other. When they came to places like East Africa, for example, in Uganda, they found that the kingdom in Uganda had a very organized system of governance, that the Uganda king, who's called the Kabaka, had even a parliament, and he had even members of parliament. He had ministers of war, ministers of food, ministers. So they were so surprised that they said that it is not possible that these people can be able to organize things like this. They said that it is either this kingdom is I don't know how I should call it. It is a spark, it is a spark from, it is a sprinkle, it is a particle, from the British kingdom. That is why, maybe, so the same claim which they made in the western part of Africa is the same claim which they were making in the eastern part of the African continent, that it is possible that this is just a particle, a displaced particle from Britain or from Europe. So these people probably, they came from Europe, they came to Europe and learned something, and then they came here. That is how they have been able to organize society. So this is the arrogance that we see being carried during that period, and even to this period, you see that it is present in how they speak, in how they talk to Africans. So everywhere they went, they looted these artifacts where Africans resisted. For example, even in the Buganda kingdom itself, there was a Kabaka, a king who was called Mwanga, who resisted the British. He was, he was exiled to Seychelles, to the island of Seychelles. When you come to Ghana, Asantewa, she was exiled because she fought against the British. She was exiled also to Seychelles. That's where they took them, because this is an island that they would not be able to sail off, Seychelles and come back to the mainland, the mainland Africa. When you go to people like the Omuka Makabalega of Bunyoro, there was a king also in the western part of Uganda. He fought them and even defeated them the first time they encountered him. They also caught him and they exiled him, after defeating him the second time in the second war, which they carried out, against him. So whenever they defeated a king like this, then they would come and loot all the artifacts and they send them. And when you go to South Africa, it's the same situation that happened there, that the Zulus were able to defeat them. But after reorganizing themselves, they came with of course, the superior weapons which they had, the cannons and the guns, and they were able to defeat the kingdom and subjugate it. In this subjugation, of course, they started looting and taking a lot of artifacts and take over the mines, take over the lands. So the Zulus, they had to defeat them, because imagine they were able to defeat the Chinese, who had even a much more advanced civilization. So that looting continued and has continued even up to to this day. If you look at what has happened to the African continent, that we have not been able to grow simply because of the continued looting. And this looting now is being carried out in another way, or what you would call a subtle way or hidden way. They are using hidden methods right now of confusion, of miseducating, or what Kataji Woodson called the miseducation of the Negro, that they miseducate a group of us and bring them and put them on us, and then they impose them on us as the best leaders, as you hear Obama's Young Africans initiative, which he was claiming that he's training future African leaders, the education system, which majority of the Africans have complained about. So all these are, geared towards maintaining the supremacy of the royal family in Britain and the royal families, in Europe. And of course, now the new oligarchs who own the corporations in the Western world, they have joined into, that group, which is depending on Africa's exploitation and Africa's resources. So to answer your question, Mahlet, briefly, that is the history of the British, royal family.
Thank you, Kwame, for that background, historical background, really, because it's important as we dive into before we discuss our main topic for today. Just to highlight some of the things what you said or related to it. Just imagine in British Museum alone, beside all those jewels and crowns and all the decorations there in the royal family, in the museum, you have stolen artifacts from Egypt, from Benin, or the now Nigeria, and from Ethiopia, actually, also, and probably from Ghana. Maybe there are some golds there. Definitely, everywhere they go, they loot. From India, from Pakistan, and these things, they don't have duplicate. Okay, there's no replica of it in its original country. So if you want to teach your youth in in those original countries. I mean, in Ethiopia or in Benin or in Ghana or in Egypt. Can you imagine the native person have to travel to London to see those things? It's just unacceptable. And on top of that, the ignorance, as Chimamanda said, what they say, it's the right place for these things to be kept, for those stolen objects, precious objects, to be kept in the British Museum. I mean, and yeah, really, as an African, it just makes me angry at myself. Also, one person cannot do anything. Um, Something has to be done. It's not just in simple jewels and crowns we are talking about. It's 95% of the heritage, the identity, the culture of the continent is stolen. So yeah, we have some good background of children from Kwame. Uh, but yeah, these are the things. But my question is, every time, whenever when when the king die, or now the coronation of the king, uh, that this kind of activism come in front, but then that's it. We don't see them anymore. These things should be dealt on the level of governments, or tourism or cultural, whoever is responsible in the country for these things. So what do you think, how should it be, the level of the engagement? What should our government official should do? What kind of measures they should take to return, to get back these artifacts?
Thank you, Mahlet. Um, well, for the African leaders, or the African heads of, I'll call them the African heads of state, because lately I was listening to Kiro Mumba, and he was redefining what a leader is. Being a head of state doesn't necessarily make you a leader. What makes you a leader is that you should have a vision for the people you are leading, or the people you are heading, for the territory you are heading. But if you don't have any vision, rather legacy that you want to leave behind, then you don't qualify to be a leader. So I will call our heads of state, I'll call them the heads of state of Africa. It is unfortunate that many of them, they have either neglected this history, or some of them, they don't know it. There is a couple of them who don't know it. And then there's those who know it, and they have decided, of course, to neglect this history on the side, as if it doesn't matter. And in many cases, of course, you hear them rationalizing about it. And some of them have completely been brainwashed about how history doesn't matter. We have forgotten about it. We should forget about it. We should move forward. We should forgive and forget. All these kind of slogans, you hear them being thrown around all the time. That Africans, we should forget and move on. Forget about the past. Move on. And this is actually a trap. This is a trap in which they want to hold Africans in, so that we cannot demand for the return of these particular artifacts. When you are talking about the artifacts, when you are talking about, for example, the stolen treasures like the diamond, which was taken from South Africa, the Cullinan diamond, which was the biggest, of course, diamond that has been cut, into many pieces. You can talk of also India, which is, demanding for its Koina diamond, which was taken from India. And this group of people are enjoying this because of the system that they built up. The British built up a system when they were living, that the mediocrity, mediocrity that our leaders engage in and forgive these people, or they relax on these people, or from holding them accountable, like how we have seen, for example, Chimamanda and Adichie. In just a simple speech, she's holding these people accountable to the things they say. But our leaders, instead of saying these things point blank, they engage in what they ignorantly term as diplomacy. They call it diplomacy because that is how they have been trained by this system that has been, created, the political system itself that has been created by the Europeans, and they continue to push it. Have you ever wondered why they continue to push it all across the globe and claim the rule of law, rule-based order? Because they are trying to entrench this system, that everyone should conform to this system. So you find that our leaders have fallen prey to this system. Some of them, they have decided to give in, to resign, to the power of the British or the Europeans,
up and down,
and not fight us at all. They do not want to fight back at all. So they have decided to live under this kind of subjugation. And so you see, they don't put up a fight. Others, like I said, they have decided to rationalize about the problem instead of coming out and supporting and holding themselves together with other Africans who were looted. They decide to rationalize it and start telling us how Africa has so many languages, it is not possible to unite, as if Africans are saying that you unite so that we can have one language. Africans have not asked that you should unite so that we can have a single language. This is not what we are asking for. Africans are saying, let us unite so that we can have an improved life. We can have an improved, education system, healthy system. These things are not respected. These things, they don't respect language, whether you speak, Zulu, whether you speak Hausa, whether you speak Igbo, whether you speak, Amharic, Swahili. These are the things that the unity of Africa is supposed to solve. But you have leaders that don't respect themselves, and this disrespect of themselves, you see that is being reflected in how they treat them across the globe, and hence how they treat the African citizens across the globe. You have seen the issues of George Floyd being killed, Sandra Bland, another young man recently last week was killed, on a train, and he was choked to death. So the African people are living under that kind of brutality and disrespect. You look at Haiti, how it is being treated by the United States, Canada. They can go in and invade how they want because these are Black people. So when the African leaders approach these problems with naivety and negligence, which we have mentioned on numerous times that the continent is suffering because of the negligence of the African heads of state, when they approach it in this way, they give these people like the British more power to continue, to behave the way they are behaving. They refuse to engage on equal basis and say, these things belong to us. The artifacts belong to us. And instead, what you are hearing the African civil society, just a single person like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, is the one who's fighting a whole group of people, of Europeans, just with the simple poetry. It is what she's using. But when she speaks, you can see that all of them have turned cold. So imagine if it is the head of state who took this responsibility and mentioned these things and said, you people have to compensate us for the colonialism. You did so much destruction to our cultures. These things you cannot even compensate them, but you have to compensate. Right now, you have to do something about it. You have to give us reparations. The only leader I saw that was strong enough and and determined enough to mention these. It was, President Muammar Gaddafi who mentioned at the United Nations that Europe and the United States, they have to compensate Africa and give it reparations for the colonialism and slavery. So when our leaders, or when our heads of state start, behaving in a respectable manner, I think we also as African people will be respected. So thank you very much, Mahlet.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kwame. I think that's our main topic for us, meaning what should be done in terms of, bringing back these artifacts back to Africa, back to where it belongs. Unless you want to add the engagement of, you want to broaden it, if Pan-African platforms like this, or any pan-activists for that matter in the continent, and also the role of the diaspora in those countries. If you have something to add related to that, well and good. But if not, I think that's it for me. I have something that's off topic but still related to this, but just let's close this and I will ask the next one.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mahlet, also for organizing the program. Thank you so much. And also the people who have been watching us today, we wanted it to be a very short one. We didn't want to hold you today for a very long time. But the point is that we as African people, the African civil society, as we have seen from history, when you examine history, history has not always been made by the people who are sitting in the mainstream. Even when you go back to slavery, colonialism, the liberation and freedom did not come, from those people who are collaborating with the colonialists or the enslavers. It is people who came from the side, people who came from society that put up this fight. So that is why we believe that the efforts which we make today, the contribution which we make today, we and you, the viewers, the contribution which you give this channel, any support which you give to this channel makes a contribution towards that process. We are the people who will make that contribution. So every generation, of course, has its own challenges. And our challenge in this generation, of course, is still the presidents who are in power, that we have to challenge them for us to take the continent in the right direction, in the position, for it to occupy the position it is supposed to. So that means us, the civil society, we Africans on the continent and abroad, working together towards that goal. It means talking to each other. It means agitating. It means constantly pushing forward. It means, linking with other like-minded people who want to see the African continent moving in the right direction. And that direction, we cannot go, to it without the support of you viewers who are watching us. So we want to invite you, for a dialogue. We want to invite you to support us in this journey in which we are embarking on, so that we can have the African voice heard on a more, on a higher note. So I want to thank you very much, all of you. We want to say have a good night, good day, and good morning, depending on where you are across the globe. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kwame. Shall I throw that question that I said it could be off topic but still related? Just one bonus question. We have heard Honorable Pierre Lumumba talking, our how you say, head of states, as you say, to use the term from you, the head of states, talk about, we are complaining, we are loaded in a bus like school kids, but then wait and see, you'll see them, all of them now being summoned to attend the king's coronation. And we did so invited, and some of them attended this King Charles coronation. What do you say about? I mean, we hear them talking about the Pan-African leader, and then again, you find them doing the same thing. Or
Yeah, so it's the
shouldn't it
same.
include
Yeah, so
this kind of events?
yeah, so it's the same thing which we've been discussing about, is that the crown, or the so-called British royal family, is still at the head of control. It still sees itself as head of these former colonies. If you read the book which was published by this guy, the husband, the Prince Harry, the book which was published, he mentions how they argued with his brother William, who owns Africa. So he's written that in his book. So it is interesting that the British still see themselves as the owners of the continent of Africa. And of course, that includes the Europeans, as you have seen France. You have seen the United States itself, its assault over the African continent. And our only scene, the scene of our heads of state, is to capitulate to this, claim, because this is what has given them power. When you look at countries, for example, the United States, what has given it power is the continued use of the dollar. There's no reason why people should use the United States dollar. So what has given it arrogancy is this continued use of the United States dollar. But when people now have started rejecting the United States dollar, all of a sudden you see anxiety in Washington. You see a lot of anxiety even within the European groups, because they see that the United States, which represents them, which represents the colonial order, is going down. They see that it is going down. So a lot of anxiety, hence they move all across the globe, starting to beg, beg here, beg here. You see them moving, all over Kenya. The German chancellor, Scholz was also in Kenya, was in Ethiopia. You see them everywhere, moving all across, trying to secure markets to look after themselves. So they cause these problems at the same time, and they cause these problems, and they want to run to us. So they are bringing us the problems which they have been causing, in Ukraine, between Russia since 1945. They are pushing themselves towards Russia, and Russia is complaining, don't move close over here. They are doing those things. Now, when they get these problems, now they run to Africa. Africa should help them. So our only problem with the African continent, you could say that we, the African people, the African civil society, also we have been so tolerating of the conditions which have been imposed on us, that even if our heads of state have been imposed on us by this colonial political system, we, the African civil society, also we should not have sat down for this long to tolerate this nonsense, to tolerate this system where Africans are disrespected across the globe. And our leaders also should not have sat to comply with this oppressive system that is oppressing their own people, and just continue, because they are enjoying on the side. They are buying mansions in Britain, in Europe, in the United States. They are flying on private jets. So this should not be the behavior, but unfortunately, this is the behavior. So if they treat them however they treat them when they go to Britain, whether it is the body of the Queen, or when they go to the United States, I think the heads of state, they deserve it. For them, they deserve it. Those ones who have decided to disrespect themselves, who have decided to oblige to that disrespect, I think they deserve it, because they should not be doing it, because it reflects badly on us as Africans. But they deserve it because they themselves have failed to put up a fight of respect, a fight of dignity, a fight for dignity. And this, like we have said, it reflects on all Africans across the globe and all people of African descent. And we have seen what they are doing to people of African descent in the United States, killing them every day like how they want. It is the behavior of the African leaders that is causing this. But it's unfortunate that they don't notice it. The mistreatment of Haiti by the same colonialists, the United States, Canada, and Europe, the mistreatment of the people in Haiti, who are Africans, when you look at them, they are not different from us who are on the continent. But the behavior, again, of the African leaders is the one which has caused this mistreatment that is happening there. And again, it is unfortunate that they don't realize that their behavior is what is causing all these problems. And if there's a realization of that by people like President Ruto, because he's the one who was mentioning this during, during the Mo Ibrahim governance weekend in Nairobi. If there's a realization of this amongst all of them, then this is good for them. It's not only good for them, but it's also good for us. Actually, it is majorly, mostly good for us. It is good for us, and it is good for them. And it is good for all the African people across the globe. But the point I want to leave behind is that these people are entitled. And like they said, all our prophets in the past, whether it is Nkrumah, whether it is Martin Luther King Jr., the people who are oppressing, including those who are enjoying the fruits of the system, do not give up. They do not give up these luxuries unless they are fought against, unless they are forced to abandon this behavior. So we as African people, as African civil society, that is the journey we are supposed to take. The journey we are supposed to take is to force the system that we want on these people by having a dialogue among ourselves, by confronting them, by pushing them out, even in some cases by force if they don't want to negotiate, so that we can be able to bring about the conditions that we want on the African continent that will suit all, the conditions that will suit all African people across the globe. So I want to thank you very much, Mahlet, for that question.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kwame. That was indeed the question. Just to give a highlight, some of the not some, I think these are all the King of Eswatini, Hichilema, of course, of Zambia, and the Rwanda, Paul Kagame. Remind me one. Oh, the Zimbabwe president, he's also invited. I'm not sure if he made it to London, but that was really controversial one, being invited after 2 decades or something. And then Ruto was also expected to be there. I don't know what happened. Yeah, but it was really necessary to reflect on that, because we talk as if we are just dumb and we forget what they tell us. They do something just for media consumption, and then something else happens on the next day. So that needs to be said as it is. But thank you for our viewers who bear with us. First of all, we really apologize. We were late today by I think 17 or 18 minutes to be precise. And we have we managed to have a PayPal account so that we can be here every day. A lot is happening in the continent and globally that affects Africa, that needs an analysis, and to bring it to our viewers here. So for that we really need your support, but your support is not only also in many ways. You can also support us. If you cannot do it financially, you can also support us. I think this is for everyone. If you like what you hear, if you find it relevance, give it a like, and then also at the same time, please share it with your network. If not, if you don't have a network, share it with your family. For any Africans that you want him or her to be educated about the topic that we bring you here. But I would like really to thank our she is always attendant. They are here from the time we start at Synovia, Indigo, Fred, Bantu. Thank you. Even those who attend, and I don't know what is the motive behind, but I see here some weird comments. Barbara Hamilton, thank you for being here, whatever is written here. Yeah, if you are a sister, all we send you is love. No problem. You're free to express what you want, but we know that we do our research and we make efforts to be here. So but at Synovia Indigo, thank you for your support via PayPal. Really, we appreciate really love, light, and respect. Please, and thank you, Kwame. That's it for us. We are going to meet again on Thursday. On Thursday, we are going to talk about the collapsing banks, financial banks, some of the big banks in the US. But also, of course, our main interest is how will that affect Africa. That is the topic, the main topic for us. But as we speak, we will bring a background history and everything. So Kwame will be, of course, with us. Kwame, do you want to say something to our viewers? And then, we close it.
Yes, I just want to say, thank you to everyone who has been hanging with us. All the people who have been watching us, we appreciate you. Those who have commented, write down in the comment section if you have topics you feel like we should touch, those topics which are burning within you, and you think that, oh, this is the topic I want you guys to talk about. Just put it down in the comment section, and then we will respond to it. We will do our research, like what Mahlet normally says. We will do our research and come back and do a presentation on that. We have a lot of other presentations that are coming up from time to time. Even we'll be coming and doing, strict, presentations with PowerPoints, and then all of them are for enlightenment and bringing out the hidden, history and information that has, been not taught in the mainstream. So that is the purpose. So we want to thank you. We want to thank you, Synovia, for being, someone who always is present when we are doing our broadcast. We appreciate you, and all those ones who are watching, we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So please also join us on our Facebook at Connect Africa Project. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask, you want it to be explained for us to cover everything regarding Thursday's topic, drop us in the comment section after this live stream is through, and then we will consider it that we make sure we cover that on Thursday. So until next time, thank you, everyone. And thank you, my brother, Kwame, really, my comrade brother. We have been through a lot, and we aim to travel. I mean, we started this journey, and I really appreciate that. It's important to give that credit, to put it out there. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your dedication, your commitment to the continent. Thank you. Have a good evening.